Hello, all my crafty people out there. It is time for our weekly project. And I've seen these a lot where people are taking jeans and turning them into skirts. Um, so I thought we might give it a try. If you haven't been here before, my name is Stephanie, and I upcycle clothing, generally thrifted items from my local stores. And sometimes we make new clothes, and sometimes we make accessories. And what we're doing this week is kind of trendy, I think. And I'm not really trendy. But anyway, I have a pair of jeans that I thrifted. And I think I thrifted them for like $3 or $4, if I remember correctly. $3 or $4 at the American Thrift. And they're not fancy. They're cute. They're cute on. I did want them to fit. And I think we'll be able to use these in the process. Fingers crossed. And I have this scarf, which I thrifted a while back, again from American Thrift. And I think scarves are usually about $3, $2.99. And I have seen all kinds of things with the skirts and jeans, but we're going to give a try for a long kind of a maxi skirt. I really kind of got attached to the last two that I've made. I'll pop them up on somewhere on the screen. And I generally stray away from long skirts because I'm so altitudely challenged. But these really, they just feel good, all the way down to your ankles and stuff. Anyway, so point is, we're going to try to make a skirt out of a pair of jeans and this scarf. If you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, follow along, check us out. Let me know what you think, and we'll get to the table. Okay, everybody, here's our jeans, our jean legs, and I debated on several things. First of all, I like this big wide cuff. I think it's really cool looking. It's already frayed, which is nice, but keeping it can be a booger because even if I did a nice jean hem, which I can do a short video on, there's a lot of them out there, where you pull it up and then you hem it and to leave you the original cuff. The problem with that is, since we're going to be taking the inseam out or opening it up, we'd have to open the hem, open that, reattach it, re-sew it, I just, no. I'm looking for a fun project that will look really cute, and I think a frayed bottom will work just fine. So I'm just going to cut the ends off of these jeans, and I'm going to use scissors. I was going to use the rotary cutter, but I want to get it, right there up against the hem line. So let's just pinch us a spot, and we'll start cutting. And then the next thing we do is we're going to be obviously opening up the inseam so we can put our fabric in there. Okay, time to cut the inseam, or I'm going to go ahead and pick this. Now, granted, it's two layered. It's the seam that you see on the outside, and then it's the serge seam. But I think I can make quick work of it with the seam ripper if I do it the right way. So I'm gonna open up the seam all the way around, and for the first seam, I'm just sticking my seam ripper in here and pushing ever so gently to get that first seam out, and then we'll go for the inseam, or the one that's inside, that's the serge seam. Okay, it's very satisfying. All right, I got it all opened up through the inseam. So this is what it looks like if you lay it flat side to side. I like the pockets, a little square pocket and a little welt pocket. The character is really cute on these jeans, so that's why I chose them. They were okay to wear as jeans, but they were so long, and I was going to have to hem them, and I think they look great as a skirt. So I have, like I said, opened up the inseam on both sides. And you'll notice that there's not a whole lot in the front. Sometimes there's a little more in the front where you've got to do some finagling. We'll do a little finagling with it, but it's the back we'll do the most. Some people will just lop that off, but I like it better when you just make use of it. And what we'll do is we'll take the natural fold and just let it happen. So that is what we're going to do. Of course, we're going to tuck in the original seams. We're going to keep them like that. And we're going to do this. Just kind of tilt that back extra piece over. And then we'll put our skirt or our scarf in the center back here and in the front. In the front, it's not going to take quite as much folding because there's not as much fabric. So it's not going to take quite as much. We're just going to have to fold over just a little bit. And we'll just make it like I said, we're just going with the seam that's already there. And we're kind of letting it naturally fold. And we'll just keep the original seam lines like that. Okay, I've got them all cut down the center, obviously, and we talked about how we're going to fold over the little crotch lines and the back. But this is going to be the challenge here. I think this is what I want it to look like. In other words, this is the part of the pattern of the scarf that I want to show up in the front and probably in the back too, but of course they'll look completely different because there'll be different pieces of the scarf. This is what I'm thinking. I think it's about 30 inches, I think we said here, and somewhere between 12 and 15 inches there about. I think the best thing to do, because this is going to be kind of wicked to cut, is to trace out the shape. And when I say trace, I mean that not necessarily trace. I think what I want to do is I'm going to meet the ends down here with this piece of paper. So this is the seam allowance right here, because I'm going to leave the raw edges of the jeans, remember, so that's not, we don't need to worry about that. And then up here where the crotch line is, I'm gonna fold this down so I'll have a cut line. And I'm just going to cut this piece here. So we'll get a smaller piece to work with. And this should be plenty enough length. Now, of course, you could also measure your paper to be, like 32 inches long or whatever. That way you'd have what you needed lengthwise. So there we go with this. And I'm putting this paper right here on the edge of this seam, accounting for a pretty healthy seam allowance because we're not sure how delicate this fabric's going to be. And then we're going to mark what we want to get up to, which is this crotch line up here. All right? Stay with me. Stay with me. I'm going to fold this piece of paper like this and capture essentially the angle here that we want. Okay? Like that. Then we're just going to take this and fold it over. Same thing. We're going to be meeting this piece up here where the point is and folding it to that. All right. Now that should be, this right here should be what we need for the center of our skirt. Now, of course, it's going to be a little shorter in the back, I believe. And let's just test this theory out and see if it's going to meet what we need. Now, I'm not doing an exact good job of cutting this out, but We're just using it as a guide. Let's see if it's going to work. I think that's going to work just fine. Okay, now we've got our pattern that we can use to cut out our fabric for our insert. And then we'll start figuring out how we're going to insert it. And I do know I want to sew these seams down back to their natural form. So other than that, we're kind of guessing it. One last check. I wanted to check from the back and make sure this was going to be wide enough too. So I went ahead and did the little fold of the back and put this down, and it should be, again, more than enough to cover this. And if I'm cutting the fabric, the scarf piece, bigger than this opening, all the better, because I want to make sure I have plenty of fabric on the side. And I also may, like I said, be applying some stabilizer to it too, to try and, you know, keep it from getting weird and stretchy. So just wanted to let you know, I did check the back. It works for the front and the back. Here's our pattern. Okay, I'm going to use some of this Pellin. It's SK135 sheer and knit. It's fusible, kind of like an interfacing, and it's just going to give us a little more stability because this scarf fabric is super thin, and but it's real loose and flimsy, so it won't inhibit the movement of the scarf. So I am putting our little pattern here up against what I've done is I've folded it in half this way to get the length I need, and then I've folded it again in half so I get the ability to cut two at a time, because we've decided that it's pretty much the same size for front and back. So I'm going to pin this, cut this, iron this onto the fabric, and then we will start assembling the actual skirt. It's taking a bit. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I have my two interfacing triangles ironed on to my scarf, and it was really good using this stuff because it's transparent, so I could place it directly on the pattern and kind of maneuver it till I got the pattern piece I wanted to show on the skirt. So here's my two triangles. This stuff's very easy to iron on. I do use a press cloth and the highest heat with steam, and also spray the press cloth down to dampen it as well. It just all helps, but it works very quick. So I'm going to cut these out, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to assemble. Okay. Okay, it's time to fit our triangle of fabric. It's not quite a triangle. I got a little bit of flatness at the top, but I did that to make sure we'd have enough seam allowance. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to sew them right sides together. And when I say that, what we're going to do with the jeans is we're going to pull that seam line out, that dark blue seam line that we want to be like this, but it can serve as a great place to sew this on seam to seam, just like you would a normal seam. And then when we turn this in, we will top stitch down on the outside to clean up that seam, make it look more like a pair of jeans. So this will give us an opportunity to sew right sides together without doing kind of weird blind stitching, which is what I was afraid of. But I think this will work out great. So I just want to meet the seams down here, the hemline, or the lack of, since I cut it off. And I'm going to pin it and go right sides together all the way down. And then the interesting part will be this part in the crotch line. I have not folded it over yet to make that little nip that straightens it out, makes it flat. And the reason I haven't is because I want to go ahead and take this all the way down using that seam line. And then I will use the other side down, and there'll be kind of like a little buckle, like a little opening there at the top because I've squared it off, but that will serve perfectly to go in that little niche when we fold over the crotch seam, just to, like I said, to flatten it down. So I think this will work perfectly for that process. And I am going to take it over to the machine and give it a try. Because I think this will be perfect, or at least it'll work. And then we'll do the back. But let's go give it a whirl on the machine first for the front. Okay, we're at the machine. And I'm going to be sewing the front panel on first. And when I do, I'm going to start at the bottom. The hemline is the most important to me. I want to make sure that it meets, and I'm actually giving it just a smidge, hard to see right there, just a smidge over, because I know this is going to fray a little bit. So it's just, the jean part is, I don't even know if it's 1/4 of an inch longer than the insert, because like I said, I know this is going to fray. So I don't want to look terribly uneven. So I'm going to go from the bottom all the way up to the crotch, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to pin the other side, and again I'm going to go from the bottom to the crotch again. And the reason I'm doing that, one, again, so we keep the hem straight, but two, you can afford the excess up in the crotch line because we're going to be folding that over and covering up that seam anyway. So here we go. Okay, everybody, got the first panel in. This is in the front. I really like the way the pattern looks there. And this is our waistline up here, obviously, where we've got to deal with this crotch line bulk, for lack of a better word. Now, I think I mentioned a couple of times probably that I wanted to top stitch around this edge. But I'm kind of liking it without the top stitch because it looks like the natural seam. The natural seam didn't have a top stitch on it, not in this particular pair of jeans, and usually that's on the outside, but this one doesn't even have it on the outside. So I kind of like it without any more stitching. That being said, all we really need to do is tack this down. So I'm going to fold this in. I'm pushing the excess fabric because it's kind of like a hole there. That doesn't look right. But anyway, I'm folding over the excess fabric this way. Kind of have to tuck it. And I'm folding the other part over this way. And all I want to do is tack this little line down. So I'm going to tack from the point of the insert up and back to the natural crotch line. And that's all I'm going to do with that. That's how I'm going to contain it. I don't want this to be folded or whatever inside. I want it to kind of lay flat. And like I said, I'm really enjoying that, the look of that seam without having to put a top stitch on it. So let me go to the machine and top stitch this down as soon as I get it fitted to where I want it to be. It might have to go the other way. That might fold better. Yeah, there. I think it folds better the other side. So let me get this down, and I'll see y'all at the machine when I stitch it down. Okay, just wanted to show you kind of up close. It's kind of hard to see from so far up over there. But the front doesn't require a lot of tucking. So we're just going to make this tuck right here and this was the cleaner. The other way it kind of buckled for some reason. So this will be fine. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this seam line that's already here where the zipper stops, and I'm just going to bring it down, cut it over here, and just cut it across this top and give it a good stitching. And I'm going to leave the rest of this open, obviously. And I'm not top stitching because I'm digging the way that looks. Okay, everybody, we're making a design change, and here's why. I went to tuck that part of the crotch and fold it in the back, and it looks plain stupid. So I thought, well, maybe I could tuck it from the inside. Well, that makes it kind of bulky. So we're going to go with the original I didn't want to do it plan because I thought it didn't need to be done. We're going to lop this off, this part off, just where the crotch line is. We're going to kind of round out the back and make it more like, you know, like the back of the skirt should be. Now, that being said, what I want to do is I'm going to test it out by doing a basting stitch in this line. So we're talking about probably taking it from here down. Can't be out of chalk already, I hope. Might be though. So we're going to take it from there down and just kind of cinch this in. We're going to put a basting stitch there. I'm going to try it on. If this looks good, then I may just serge that off and be done with it because we want to get rid of that bulk anyway. But I'm going to try the line first just so we don't lose any fabric in the process, because I could always unstitch that line and restitch it or whatever we want to do. But let's test it first. So let me go over there, sew that line, try it on, and I will let y'all know if this is going to work. And if it is, then we'll know next time. Then we'll just cut this off on the front end and won't have to worry about it. So tested it out a couple of different times and ended up with this final line right here. It was straighter than I was expecting, which means I may not have as much curve behind me as I thought or used to. So this is the line I ended up with, the one closest to the skirt. So I'm going to go over to the serger and I'm just going to serge off this point, and I think we'll be done and I'll try the skirt on. I know this was a big alteration in the plan, but sometimes it just happens. You sew something together, test it out, try it on, think, that's not quite it, and have to make little adjustments. But in the future, I'll know to cut this point off before I get to sewing in the panel. Okay, everybody. This is how you get a wider view of my messy room. But we got to have it in order to see the skirt, which I am very happy with. I've got both the panels in. It's long. It's just the right height for me to wear tennis shoes with, which apparently is all I'm wearing to work lately. And it was really not a hard project at all. The trickiest part was the back, which you saw, kind of had to think about it, remake it. But now in the future, I know I will probably cut that piece off before I start creating the panels. But it really wasn't hard to do it afterwards either. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you like this kind of content, if you had fun, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. And I'll catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.